Hello everyone, this is Ashish and welcome back to Spacecast, the space technology and rocketry podcast. And we are going to talk about the Apollo missions today. More importantly, we are going to talk about the birth of rocket science itself. We are going to talk about history and how military technology gave birth to the space technology that we see today. How its root is engraved so deep as it goes back to the World War II. We are going to talk about all those, but before we start, the request of this podcast was also given by one of the very frequent listeners to this podcast. So here I always respect the kind of requests that you guys give. So if you are on Anchor listening to it in audio version, you can give me a voice message. If you are watching this and listening to this on YouTube, then you can put it down in the comment section. What are your requests? What do you want me to talk about? Or you are on Spotify or Google Podcast or other platforms, then you can definitely come over here on YouTube and put the comment section. By the way, people who are watching me on YouTube, you can go to Spotify, Google Podcast and other platforms to listen to it just in audio form. Without wasting any more time, let us get into the topic today. That is the history of space technology and rocket science, or the rocketry itself. Where was it born? So let us talk about it properly. World War II. In World War II, there was a special rocket built by the Germans, the V2 rocket. And V2 stood for, I know that I'm going to mess it up, so I'm going to Google it up kind of over there. It was okay, it got into my head, Wagentunshof. Anyways, even if I see it properly, even then I would not be able to pronounce it properly, but I do know what it stands for, and in German it means vengeance. That was the meaning of that missile during Hitler era, during the Nazi era, that was built to destroy people, and it did that sufficiently until what happened during the end of World War. The Manhattan Project was very successful in America, and they were able to devise the atom bomb. They made it to drop it on Germany. They started that project basically because they were afraid that Germany themselves are making their own atom bomb, but that was not 100% true. Yes, they understood how to split the atom, but Americans were 100% successful in building the atom bomb. That is a completely different story, but Germany, just when the atom bomb was ready, had already surrendered. Now what will America do with that atom bomb? It went straight to Japan and dropped it over there. Hiroshima, first atom bomb dropped over there. Japan said, we don't care, we'll keep on fighting. Few days later, they dropped the second atom bomb, Nagasaki. And a few days later, Japan surrendered. Sorry, I did not mean to laugh on Japan, but it is kind of funny. Okay, now it is funny because Japan is perfectly fine now, hopefully. Okay, but this virus has messed up everyone. But basically, getting back to the topic, all right, keeping it funny as possible. Now, Japan surrendered, and now USSR, Russia as we know today, they are also tired of World War going on for 6 years. God damn it, we are done with it. So what happens is America, Russia signs few treaties. They walk into Germany. They walk to the technical hub of Germany where the rockets were built, where the V2 rocket was built. And this is how the legend goes. Russians took half of the rocket scientists that Germans had, and half of the rocket scientists and the engineers were taken by America. America started their NASA, and Russians started their own space organization. And now the World War was over, but human beings, they are not tired of competing. So they said that who is going to reach the orbit first? Which country is going to reach moon first? Which country will be able to send a human being outside the space first? And hence started the space race in the Cold War era. And this was majorly being won by Russia in the beginning. And there's kind of a joke going on that at that time, that once Americans were asked that what is the reason, why were they able to put an artificial satellite first in the orbit, how were they able to put living organism first in the orbit, how were they able to send a human being in the orbit first? And few of the Americans joke like, it's very simple. Their Germans are better than our Germans, right? Because that was the basis. The missile scientists of German, half of them went to Russia, half of them went to America, and they started the space organizations. All right. So I think 1957, first artificial or man-made object reached the orbit. That was Sputnik, right? Sputnik satellite reached the orbit. And Americans were scratching their head that how were they able to do it so fast. And then right after that, 2 months later in November, Laika, the dog, went into orbit. That was Sputnik 2. And right after that, in 1961 itself, April, Yuri Gagarin became the first human being to orbit the Earth. And then Americans were saying that, okay, we are done with this. And right there, John F. Kennedy become the president. He was a new president back then. And he said it openly. I think May 1961, he said that by the end of this decade, we are going to land on moon. And hence began the Apollo missions. All right. So you have to know a little bit of history of rocket science to understand how the Apollo mission came into being. Now, while we are talking about it, let's talk about that in more detail. See, whatever space technology that you're seeing today, or whatever technology in general, like starting from this mic to my cell phone to my camera to you watching me on a laptop or a mobile phone, every technology was first used by military. Name anything. It was first used by military. Cell phones, first used by military for communication. This microphone also used first by military for communication because those were the radio days. You talk about camera, first used over there. Satellites, they were not used to monitor the agriculture or the crops that would be useful for mankind in that domain. It was used for surveillance, to keep an eye on other countries. That's how they found out that Russians were planning to get onto moon, because they saw an image of them making a huge rocket, right? So that's what it all started from. All the technology that we are having, even the big companies, the automobile companies that we see today, BMW actually came into being during World War II. Computers came into being during World War II. There's a great movie. It is on Alan Turing, and the name of the movie is Imitation Game. And it actually shows how the computer came into being. The first concept of computer came into being, and that was nothing but something, a form of artificial intelligence, just a little bit tint of that will actually predict the code, or it will break the code, or it will make all the settings on its own. That movie is tremendous. You should watch it at some time or the other. But all the technology, and let us now get into rocket science. Now, this is how it came to be. It was missile, okay? And all of it was, all the rockets that we see today, all the launch vehicles that we see today, all the rocket engines that we see today, all of them had a father, or the daddy, as you can say, the V2 rocket made by the Germans, the German engineer who was behind all of this, von Braun. He was the architect of the V2 rocket. It is nothing but a liquid engine, all right? It works on liquid oxygen, obviously, as oxidizer, and ethanol and water mixture as your fuel, all right? So von Braun now is taken by America, and now he is working on the Apollo missions. He was the architect of the Saturn V rocket also, the one which is going to take Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to moon, and then they are going to come back, right? So that's how it all came to be. See, a missile and a rocket, the only difference is the payload. You put warhead as the payload, it becomes a missile. You put something good like satellite or astronauts as the payload, it becomes a rocket. Matter of fact, people also say that ICBMs, what are ICBMs? Intercontinental ballistic missiles. What are they? That they will leave the atmosphere. Once they leave the atmosphere, they can reach the speed of like 7 to 8 times the speed of sound, and then they are going to reach a particular place, and then they are going to re-enter. And if they survive the re-entry and it is having a warhead, it can be dropped at any particular point. How are we going to control that it should be pinpointed at that time? Navigation and guidance. That is how we control any rocket, any launch vehicle, that it will know what is the trajectory and it can pinpoint where we want to land. That's how we reach on moon as well, that we know what is the trajectory, because everything is spinning. Earth is spinning, the moon is revolving around, at the same time Earth is moving around the sun. Everything is moving, and at that time you want to hit a target, the navigation and guidance should be perfect, right? So where was I again? All right, so that is the birth. So basically, when they were trying to develop ICBMs, they were able to launch it across the atmosphere, but when they were trying to re-enter, because now the velocity is very, very high, they are trying to re-enter, it is blasting away because they are not having sufficient thermal shielding. So okay, they said that, okay, re-entry is difficult, but we can use it to launch something into the satellite, because we have to just cross the atmosphere, right? So that's how they started launching satellites and all, right? So it is not like rockets or the satellites were first used for that. Later, it was commercialized. The GPS itself, it was first used for military purposes. India itself decided to start its own GPS kind of thing, the Navik mission, because they faced a lot of problem during the 1999 Kargil war. Because over there in the Kashmir border, that Kargil border, what happened was that Pakistani forces or military was having an advantage because they were on top, right? And Indians were at the bottom. So they wanted to get a proper picture, and Americans at that time denied to give them the GPS. And then Indians said that we are going to build it on our own. Hence the birth of the Navik mission. And they said that we are going to put a constellation of 7 satellites and it's going to be faster than GPS. All right. So it all started over there itself, and you need to understand the history of where it is coming from. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson, he has written a tremendous book, the hidden, I'll put the name over here. I've not read that book. It is ordered, it is coming very soon, and I want to read that. Especially when I was in ISRO also, few of the very very elite scientists came and took our classes, and they said that one professor basically said that, scientist basically said that there's not, the only difference between a missile or a rocket would be that the navigation and guidance system of a missile is much more accurate, because you have to pinpoint it properly. Otherwise, you want to destroy part A and you're going to be destroying part B. Or maybe you want to destroy, I hope you don't want to destroy, but let's say you want to destroy a populated area and you drop it on some desert or something, right? So the navigation and guidance needs to be much more accurate. But look at this, what warfare gave us. It must be terrible during World War II, but the birth it gave, right? They say, no, that necessity is the father of invention. Indeed, no better quote to put at this point, right? Okay, now let us come back to the Apollo missions in the 1960s. So they invested a lot, just like they did in the Manhattan Project. They invested a lot in the Apollo missions also. And it was clear that we want to reach moon before Russians do, because they have beaten us 3 times already. We want to be ahead. And this is another thing about space technology and all that. There's various countries having their own space organizations. It is almost like an Olympics kind of thing going on. What is Olympics? Olympics is a peaceful way to show a country's strength. Why do you want your country's athlete to win in Olympics? Because you feel proud because of that, because you think that, yes, my country is very strong, right? So it is a good way to show your strength. In a similar manner, there's a kind of Olympics going on over here in the space age also. Why do we say that this is the 4th country to reach moon, this is the 5th country to reach moon, or this is the 1st country to reach moon, this is the 1st country to reach Mars, this is the 1st country that will be able to put humans on Mars? Because we care. We fight against each other, but in a peaceful manner. In that manner, we are competing against each other. That is actually making our technology better. And I think that in this domain, in space domain, because over here the scientists comes into the picture, we are sensible because we support each other. Because you might be knowing that Russians gave us the cryogenic technology. That's the basis of the first cryogenic engine that Indians were having, and later they made an indigenous cryogenic engine. Matter of fact, that in the semi-cryo engine also, maybe Indian will develop on their own, or maybe they will get the technology from Russia. Nothing is clear, but right now they are trying to build on their own. Or it is also said, also the Vikas engine was brought from the French technology. All right, the Europeans gave the technology of the Viking engine, and then we developed that. So, and also I still remember I read that book on history of ISRO by Arumudan, and it is one of the best books that I've written so far. Did I say written? I've read so far. Okay, extremely sorry, my mind went somewhere else. Now, in that book, it was written that initially when ISRO was forming, right, when Sarabhai was thinking of making a space organization in India, then what happened is that they sent 5 scientists, 6 scientists from India to NASA to get trained over there. At the same time, few scientists from Pakistan also went to NASA to get trained over there. And these scientists are not having any problem. You're from Pakistan, you're from India. No, they're here to learn, and America is helping in that. So when it comes to space, then they will be helped. Also, There are some problems in that also, because when India and Russia was having just some technology transfer of cryo engine, they have to stop in between. You know that? They had to stop in between because America intervened. You know why? Because America was afraid that India will be using that technology of cryogenic engines into developing missiles, which is completely stupid because India had already developed their solid stages so well. And when it comes to missiles, you are better off with solid engines because they can be stored for longer time and they are more powerful, right? And see, this is the problem with liquid engines. You'll have to fuel it. It will be taking a long time to get fueled, and will take a particular amount of time to get ready to be launched. Solid engines, on the other hand, are ready all the time. They can be stored for like 4 years, 5 years. That's the shelf life. And Indians are already masters in that, but they intervened. They were afraid that you can use the semi-cryo engine technology to build missiles. So they are having a problem in that sense, because it happens, no? Because, a country will be saying that I'll be using nuclear technology for peaceful purposes. I'll be using it to develop reactors. And meanwhile, that country is also developing atom bombs, right? That is a problem. Okay, so yes, to some extent, countries do help each other. And see what happened when America intervened. No, India said that we are going to build our own cryogenic technology, and that's what India did. And they developed their own cryogenic engine. That is the C-25 engine that we are using right now in Mark III, right? So it helps also sometimes, or sometimes if you don't help, they are going to build their own. Okay, so that is also very interesting. That same technology, different countries built in different manner. Amazing, right? Like Americans built their semi-cryo technology also, and until Russia. See, here's the thing. Americans were very good in cryogenic technology. Russians were very good in semi-cryo technology, right? Until Elon Musk came and he developed a semi-cryo engine on his own. Not on his own, but he had scientists. Now India is trying to develop semi-cryo engine. So the same technology, but built in different manner. So if you are actually going to open up the engine, it is going to be different. But yes, the result is same, and the idea is same, that I'm going to use kerosene and liquid oxygen, and it works all along, right? So in a similar manner, like GPS of America, now India is making their own navigation system. The technology, the output is same only, but people are doing it in an indigenous manner. So that's amazing, right? Okay, what was the point of all this again? Again, getting back to the Apollo mission, right? I hope that you're loving the way that it is going in a complete, raw, unscripted manner, so that we just talk and I'm just able to express the kind of knowledge that I can express over here. And your opinions are most welcome. That is why I say, if you have any ideas or concepts or things that you want me to discuss, put it down in the comment section on YouTube. Okay. Okay. Other than that, let us get back to Apollo mission. So what they did, so the first Apollo launch, it ended up miserably, because what happened is that there were 2 or 3 astronauts, I'm not sure, 3 astronauts most likely, and the launch vehicle failed on the launch pad itself, and all of them died. Okay, then they made it better, and what they did is that first I'm going to orbit the Earth, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to moon and orbit the moon, and then I'm going to go to moon and orbit the moon and then land on the moon, right? So I've already talked about how you can land on moon. That video will be very, very informative. If you haven't watched this, pause this video, go and watch it and come back over here, because it's going to be very, very essential, okay, for the rest of the talk that I'm going to do over here. So then comes Von Braun again. Von Braun devises the Saturn V launch vehicle. The lowermost stage is having 5 F1 engine. Again, it is a semi-cryo engine because it is having kerosene and liquid oxygen as fuel and oxidizer respectively. And this is like crazy. F1 engine is super strong. Like you can produce somewhere around like 600 ton thrust. If you do not understand the magnitude of that, the biggest solid stages can produce somewhere around 200 to 300 ton thrust. And I've already talked about this, that solid engines are made to produce a lot of thrust, right? They're having very low specific impulse. Someday I'm going to talk about that specific speed and all, but they're able to produce very high amount of thrust. They're not controllable, but they are known, like a liquid engine cannot be compared with a solid engine when it comes to thrust. But this liquid engine is able to produce a much higher you can understand how big that engine would be. I'll put a picture over here. Okay. So that was the basis. There's no Saturn V, there's no person ever reaching to moon, because you have to have a lot of energy to take 3 human beings to moon. I'm not talking about weight of 3 human beings. They're like, how much will they weigh? Let us say 300 kgs, not more than that. But the life support system, because it is going to take 2.5 days to reach over there. It is going to orbit, and then the same amount of time to get back, right? It is going to take only 4 hours to reach the orbit of Earth. Even less than that, you are going to reach in few minutes. All right. Then it's going to orbit, and then finally it's going to get into translunar injection maneuver. Okay. I'm going to talk about that in detailed manner. Don't worry about that. Step by step, we'll get into that. But the point again, Von Braun comes, is the head of it, is the mastermind of this, developed Saturn V launch vehicle. And then first, the most significant Apollo launch will be Apollo 8, where what they do is that they actually reach moon, but they do not land over there. They orbit the moon and then they come back. Right? The first sight of moon. Do you know how amazing that would be? I don't, but we are having pictures to see how amazing. Like first time you turn up and you're seeing moon, that would be amazing, right? Okay, so this is how they did it. You're going to launch Saturn V launch vehicle. It is going to get into an orbit, what we call a parking orbit, right? So it is going to take maybe one orbit, and then it is going to have, again, one stage will be firing, and then what will happen is that it is going to basically increase its apoaxis, right? So it is going to get so high, or its elliptical orbit is going to become so big that it is going to get trapped into the gravity of moon. And it is not like once it gets trapped into the gravity of moon, it's not like it is going to get into the orbit of moon. No, it is just going to get influenced. And when you reach the closest point of moon, you fire retrograde, all right? And then you close the orbit so that you get a good uniform circle, so that you are revolving around us. That is why I said you need to watch that video first. Okay. Anyways, I'm trying to explain the best with my words, because this is a podcast. A lot of people are listening. But basically, maybe you might have seen, and some people were asking this question also, why do they make a figure 8? Yes, the full move will look like 8 only, all right? But it's not like it is going to launch and then it's going to become an 8 also, all of a sudden. First, it's going to form a 0 around, or not a 0, or a O around Earth. That means one orbit. And when it is at a perfect location, so everything has to be calculated, no? That when do we fire so that we reach moon exactly, because we are not shooting at moon, we are shooting at where the moon is going to be. All right, so at a perfect time when you are in parking orbit, you are going to fire that stage, and then you are going to launch the spacecraft where the 3 astronauts are sitting. Okay, so I'm talking about the first Apollo 8 mission, where they are just orbiting. So they are basically going to get caught in the gravitation of moon, and then when you're closest to the moon, you're going to fire retrograde. Retrograde basically means that firing opposite to the direction where you're moving. Okay, so your engine, or you are pointing opposite to the direction in which you are moving. When you fire, your velocity is going to reduce, because it is all about acceleration, right? When you put thrust, you gain acceleration. When you put thrust in the opposite direction, you gain deceleration. That means your acceleration drops, your velocity will keep on dropping, right? So that's what they are going to do, and they are going to attain an orbit. All right, and when it will be like Apollo 11 mission, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin was there, then what will happen is that they are going to drop another spacecraft onto the surface of moon, and then Neil Armstrong will come out and step on moon, and the famous words were, one step for a man and a giant leaps for the mankind. All right, the most famous words, the most pivotal point on space history, on human history, that a human being is standing on another celestial body, changes everything. Now what you need to do is that you need to expand, you need to multiply. You have learned to land on the surface of moon. Now you can land anywhere. All right, that the possibility is now there. Now the only thing is that you have to multiply the technology, and that happened in 1960s, and we are right now in 2020 dealing with a virus. By the way, a weird thought came into my mind, that this virus has shut down so much and people are very happy. People online are so happy. Okay, that is a topic that I will be talking on some other day. Okay, let us not deviate from the topic. Then Apollo 11 happened, and then those gentlemen landed on moon, and it did not stop over there. Then there were 5 more subsequent missions. Yeah, total six successful Apollo missions where people landed on moon, right? And it went up to Apollo 17. That's another thing that people are asking. Did human beings actually land on moon? We do not know. That people are doubting that. See, according to me, I have absolutely no doubt that humans actually did land on moon. When you look at the technicality, or you look at the science, you look at the rocket science, it is not that difficult to land on moon, especially because if you say that humans never landed on moon, then you'll also say that humans never went to ISS or humans never went to orbit. That is complete garbage, right? We are having pictures, we are having videos from people doing that. Or you can say anything. People will even say that we are actually living on flat earth. There is no end to that. People, you cannot prove, but you'll still argue. Those kind of people are always there. But I have watched that, all right? There was a master class. All right, now that also gets advertisement every now and then, and I specifically bought the master class because of Chris Hadfield. Now Chris Hadfield was teaching about basically what astronauts have to do. All right, so he explained everything, and in that there was one particular episode where he was talking about landing on moon, and he explained everything properly, and I also explained everything, how they developed into reaching to moon. It seems very logical, right? But there will be lot of controversies, or there will be lot of conspiracy theories. Some people will be bringing the picture from the moon landing, and they will be saying that there are no stars over here and it is not looking natural. It looks like someone is landing on set or something. See, there was a video by NVIDIA, and you know what is NVIDIA. NVIDIA is almost the best when it comes to graphics. Okay, and they did a proper study. They rebuilt moon. They rebuilt thousands and millions of stars, and then they said that, okay, what will it look like when I took the picture now? And it looked exactly like the picture that we have right now of Neil Armstrong landing on moon. Like, why would you fake it not once but 6 times? It does not make sense, right? So Neil deGrasse Tyson also once said that it would be much easier to actually go and land on moon than to fake it, because there are proper documents available. And once you start understanding and studying rocket science, it is not that difficult. Why did we never do it again? Well, we are trying to do it again. NASA actually right now is working towards it. SpaceX is not only working towards that, but is working towards landing on Mars. So obviously it is possible. Then again the question, why was there 30 years gap between we again thinking about landing on moon? Politics. See, when the government changes now, and there was a very good study on this also, when the government changes, the funding breaks every now and then. And that was what was happening with NASA. Every now and then they would gain momentum, and then the government changes and the funding drops, right? And that will be the cause of you're not having sufficient amount to invest for moon landing and all. Okay. Plus, the main reason why NASA did it was to prove that we are superior when it comes to space race. And then the USSR broke. And man, that was the most terrible thing that could happen to the space technology in general, because they were so far ahead. They already had developed their own space shuttle kind of thing, which was much better than the space shuttle. But right there, the USSR broke, and their funding dropped like crazy, and it is not even possible to get back. The Energia launch vehicle is now sitting, and it got destroyed just by sitting at a particular place. Okay, maybe someday we are going to talk about that also. So do I think that humans landed on moon? Yeah, hell yeah, man. Why not? Especially when humans have been able to send a spacecraft which has crossed Pluto. I'm talking about Voyager. Why wouldn't they be able to do the same with a human being? But the only thing is that when it comes to human being, you have limited time, because you will be taking some resources for the survival of that human being. Especially if you believe that a human being can go to the orbit, to ISS, and so many astronauts have spent years over there. That I think the maximum is a year or something that an astronaut has spent in space, and they have come back. So they have spent like 90 days, 100 days are very, very common. Okay. So if you believe that they can do that, why can't they do on moon, because moon is not also not having any atmosphere. ISS is also not having any atmosphere around them, right? So it is very, very possible. I do not think that there is any doubt in that. So I think we have discussed maximum of what we wanted to discuss about the Apollo mission and all. And I do not have any topics to talk about right now, but there are a lot of topics going on in my head. For example, I want to talk about the space shuttle also. I want to talk about the history of ISRO, because that is something that I have studied very well. That is something that I've been taught by people who were part of history of ISRO. So that I want to be done properly, because before I put a talk, because these talks are not edited or anything, I just start talking about this in a similar manner. Someday I want to talk about the history of ISRO also. Someday I want to talk about the history of NASA in a very huge extent. I have talked about the history of NASA, how it came to be. I've talked about the history of rocketry also. Or someday I just want to break down various launch vehicles of SpaceX or something. We will be doing that. All right. But for today, I think this is going to be it. I hope that you enjoyed it. And like I said, the audio version is available on Spotify, Google Podcast, and all the other audio platforms. If you're listening to it over there, you can come and watch the video version over here on YouTube on the channel Ashish Ranjan, and put your comments down in the comment section what you want me to make as next video. If you're listening on Anchor, put an audio message and I'm going to definitely listen to it. I'm going to note it down and I'm going to talk about it. And if you're on YouTube, man, it's good. Just put it down in the comment section. What do you want me to talk about? There might be multiple suggestions. Maybe I'll compile it all and talk about it. Okay. This is one of my favorite things that I do. I want to make Spacecast weekly. So you put your suggestions, you put your questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer all of them. Right. And other than that, there's no other than that. I think this is the end of this. Yeah. I was saying that there are other suggestions also that I have not dealt with. For example, people were asking me to talk about the black hole, the gravity turn, and all those astrophysics kind of things. And those are also very, very interesting. And I'm going to talk about that also very soon. We are going to do all of that. This channel is going straight to the rocket science, start skyrocketing in that direction, if I might say. Alright, so that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see all of you in the next one. Till then, bye.